This hearing was supposed to be about oversight. Instead, it turned into a masterclass in evasion and a painful reminder of how easily truth gets buried when power is on the line.
Madam Chair, Attorney General Bondi, at your confirmation hearing in January, made a clear commitment you would not politicize your position. We are here today at your first oversight hearing 9 months into your tenure, at a time when hundreds of career prosecutors have quit because they were required to take unethical actions at odds with that promise, or feared that they would have to take such actions if they remained on the job. When over 1,000 former federal prosecutors have sounded the alarm about the unprecedented degree to which the powers of DOJ are being abused to go after the president's enemies. I approach this hearing with a heavy heart. As a former federal prosecutor myself, I served in a department that, whether it was under a Democratic or Republican president, would never use the office to go after the president's enemies or to hide the corruption of his friends. But today, the Justice Department has been used to cover up the possible corruption of the mayor of New York or of a high-level administration official taking $50,000 reportedly in cash in a bag, or a child sex predator who befriended the president and some of his cabinet members. And instead of preventing partisan weaponization, your department has engaged in a brazenly political prosecution at the president's explicit direction. The department has become President Trump's personal sword and shield to go after his ever-growing list of political enemies and to protect himself, his allies, and associates. My questions therefore focus on these two themes: hiding the corrupt acts of his friends and prioritizing the political prosecution of his enemies. So let me start with the shocking allegations of bribery and pay to play. 2 weeks ago, 4 major media outlets reported that Tom Homan, the president's top deportation official working in the White House, took $50,000 in cash in a bag from undercover FBI agents in September 2024, just over a year ago. According to these reports, Homan indicated he would facilitate securing contracts in exchange for money once he was in office in a future Trump administration. Reportedly, this exchange was caught on tape. Rather than pursue this investigation without fear or favor, the department and the FBI under your leadership or that of your predecessor before you confirmed quietly shut it down. Once news broke, your deputy and FBI director issued a joint public statement confirming that the Trump administration closed the investigation. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt denied Homan took the $50,000, telling a reporter, quote, "Mr. Homan never took the $50,000 that you're referring to, so you should get your facts straight." So today I hope you can help us get our facts straight. Was that true, what the White House press secretary said when she denied Homan took the money? Did he take the money?
Senator Schiff, as I stated earlier, I was not in office. I was not confirmed when that was handled.
So does that
Deputy Attorney General Blanche and Director Patel said that there was no evidence that Tom Homan committed a crime. Yet now you're putting his picture up to slander him.
No, I'm putting his picture up showing an interview he gave with, I think, Fox, in which he was asked explicitly about these allegations that he took a $50,000 bribe, and he refused to answer. He said he didn't answer the question whether he took the money, so I'm asking you the question. Did he take the money?
Senator Schiff, I answered that question multiple times. And frankly, you know...
Well, I don't think, with respect, I don't think you did. But in case I just didn't hear you, what is the answer? Did he take the money?
Senator Schiff, that happened prior to my confirmation as Attorney General.
Do you know,
I said that.
Do you know, sitting here, whether he took the money?
All I know is that Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche and FBI Director Patel said there was no case. And Caroline Leavitt is one of the most trustworthy human beings I know.
So
and,
was she? Was she
if
right?
you worked for me, you would have been fired because you were censured by Congress for lying with your
We can stipulate to, you can stipulate to all your personal attacks on the Democratic members of the committee.
Personal attacks? You've been attacking my FBI director. You've been attacking my office. You've been attacking.
What we're interested in.
Borders are.
What we're interested in is the answer to these oversight questions.
Want your,
So
no,
you were
oversight.
asked
You want your 5
by my
minutes of
colleague.
fame
You were asked by my colleague.
attacking good people.
Regular order, Madam Chair, so I can ask a question. You were asked by my colleague from Vermont whether you will support providing a video or audio tape, if it exists, of Mr. Holman taking $50,000 in bribe money from the FBI. Will you support a request by this committee to provide that tape or tapes to the committee? Yes or no?
Senator Schiff, you can talk to Director Patel about that.
Well, I'm talking to you about it. You're the Attorney General. This will be your decision. Will you
You
support?
don't have to tell me what is my decision and what is
then-
not my
then-
decision.
then-
I
and
said
you- and
you
you
can
don't
talk
have
to
to-
Director
you don't
Patel.
have to try to-
You think
you
you've
don't
got a
have to-
gotcha with Tom Home and our borders are,
excuse me, you
who's
don't-
been out there
excuse me.
fighting for our country
Madam
since
Chair,
Donald Trump took office.
I'm trying to ask a question. Regular order, please. And you don't have to defer to the FBI director to pass the buck. So I'm asking you, will you support a request so that the committee, or indeed I believe the American people, should be able to see that video or audio tape? Will you support that request?
Will you apologize to Donald Trump
So
for
I
trying
guess,
to
I
impeach
guess the
him
answer is you won't support that
after
request.
you now know that
So
Joe
let
Biden
me-
tried
let
to
me
cover up
do
Hunter
this.
Biden's involvement with
Excuse
Ukraine?
me. Let me do this because I think it's valuable that the American people get a sense of what you've refused to answer today. So these are just some of the questions you refused to answer, or have answered with personal attacks on members of this committee. You were asked whether you consulted with career ethics lawyers, as you promised you would do during your nomination hearing, when you approved the president receiving a $400 million gift from the Qataris. You refused to answer that question. You were asked who or what role you may have played, or who played the role in asking that Trump's name be flagged in any of the Epstein documents gathered by the FBI. You refused to answer that question. You were asked whether Holman kept the $50,000 bribe money. You refused to answer that question. You were asked whether Holman paid taxes on the $50,000 bribe money. You refused to answer that question. You were asked, did career prosecutors find insufficient evidence to charge James Comey? You refused to answer that question. You were asked, how are military strikes on these boats in the Caribbean legal? And you refused to even answer that question.
You
were
have a
asked,
law degree,
excuse
Senator
me,
Schiff?
excuse me. You were asked, did you discuss indicting James Comey with the president? You refused to answer that question. You were asked, did you approve the firing of antitrust lawyers who disagreed with the Hewlett-Packard merger? You refused to answer that question. You were asked whether you support a restoration fund for violent insurrections to attack the Capitol on January 6th. You refused to answer that question. You were asked whether you were firing career professionals, career prosecutors, just because they worked on January 6th investigations. You refused to answer that question. You were asked by my California colleague whether you believe government officials, like immigration officials, have to abide by court orders. You wouldn't even answer that question. This is supposed to be an oversight hearing.
Oversight?
Excuse me, you can attack me after my time is over.
You've attacked all of us, including President Trump, for your entire career.
You can attack me later, and I know you've got plenty of canned attacks. We've heard them all day to day.
Canned attacks on you?
This is supposed to be...
No one needs a canned attack on you.
Regular order, Madam Chair, I'm trying to speak. This is supposed to be an oversight hearing of the Justice Department. And it comes in the wake of an indictment called for by the president of one of his enemies. This is supposed to be an oversight hearing, and it comes in the wake of revelations that a top administration official took $50,000 in a bag, and this department made that investigation go away. This is supposed to be an oversight hearing when dozens of prosecutors have been fired simply because they worked on cases investigating the former president. This is, and now
What
the current
about the
president.
fires in California?
And
Do you
this
care
is
about that,
supposed to
Senator
be,
Schiff?
this is supposed to be an oversight hearing in which members of Congress can get serious answers to serious questions about the
Are the
cover-up-
riots in
about the
LA
cover-up-
serious?
About the cover-up of corruption, about the prosecution of the president's enemies. And
I think you owe the president an apology
when will it be
your entire career,
that the
frankly.
members of this committee on a bipartisan basis demand answers to those questions and refuse to accept
Clearly you're a
personal,
failed lawyer
refuse to
because you don't
accept
understand when
excuse
someone
me,
can and cannot
refuse
answer
to
a
accept
question.
personal slander as an answer to those questions.
Personal slander.
With
Will
that,
you
Madam
apologize
Chair,
to Donald
I yield
Trump for
back.
slandering him? Personal slander.
Senator Brett.
May I ask unanimous consent, Madam Chair, to introduce into the record the statement of 1,000 former Justice Department officials who warned that the Comey indictment is a democracy-threatening abuse of power. May I also request unanimous consent for the introduction to the record of 282 former career officials at the Justice Department raising an alarm who were voluntarily or involuntarily forced to leave the department because of improper actions taken by the Department of Justice. May I introduce with unanimous consent the Justice Department manual that talks about when initiating and declining charges are subject to impermissible considerations. And finally, Madam Chair, may I introduce the letter from Michael Ben-Ari, a career counterterrorism prosecutor, DOJ, a letter he nailed to his door, which concludes by urging officials to do the right thing for the right reasons, to follow the facts and the law, and raises the alarm that the decision to remove experienced career officials from U.S. attorneys' offices, the FBI, and critical parts of DOJ undermines our country's abilities to counter terrorist organizations, malign nation-state actors, and countless others that seek to harm our nation and its citizens. And he believes that the priority is prosecuting the
still
president's
arguing,
enemies
or are you admitting
rather
that?
than
Ms.
protecting
Bondi,
the country.
one moment.
May I have unanimous
Are you
consent to enter
entering
these
that
into the record?
without objection?
Thank you. I yield back.
Senator Brett.
Senator Moody, may I clarify one thing he entered in the record? I just want to say that I believe he entered a letter by 200 and something former employees. Well, I believe the spokesperson for that letter was also the spokesperson for Jack Smith.
Senator Brett. Thank you, Madam Chair. General Bondi.
This exchange is one of those moments that crystallize how fragile the line between justice and politics has become. Schiff began by reminding Bondi and the country of a promise she made at her confirmation hearing, that she would not politicize her position, that she would stand apart from the partisan warfare that's come to define Washington. But what we saw here was something else entirely. Schiff lays out the scene. Hundreds of career prosecutors have resigned, over 1,000 former DOJ officials have raised alarm, and oversight hearings, which are supposed to be the mechanisms that keep government accountable, are now battlegrounds of denial and deflection. When Schiff confronts Bondi about the allegations surrounding Tom Homan, Trump's deportation chief accused of taking $50,000 in cash from undercover agents, she doesn't deny, confirm, or clarify. She deflects. She shields. And that silence, that refusal to engage, tells us more than any yes or no answer ever could. Let's pause here and think about what's really being exposed. Schiff isn't merely interrogating one attorney general. He's holding up a mirror to the system itself, one where loyalty to a political figure has begun to replace loyalty to the Constitution. Bondi's evasions, her repeated, "I wasn't in office, you'll have to ask the FBI director," and "Caroline Leavitt is trustworthy," all echo a broader phenomenon, the rebranding of justice as partisan warfare. The most telling part of this hearing is not the accusation itself, but the reaction to it. Schiff asks a simple question: did Tom Homan take the money? And instead of transparency, we get hostility. Bondi accuses Schiff of slandering good people and launches into counterattacks against Democrats, the FBI, and even Schiff's own integrity. In that moment, oversight becomes theater, and accountability becomes almost impossible. This is where viewers need to understand the deeper significance. Oversight hearings like this one are not meant to be political performances. They're constitutional obligations. The founders designed Congress to act as a check on executive power, especially the Department of Justice, which wields enormous authority over who gets investigated, prosecuted, or ignored. When those oversight mechanisms break down, when hearings devolve into partisan shouting matches, democracy itself weakens. Because without accountability, power becomes self-protective. It stops serving the public and starts serving itself. Schiff's long list of unanswered questions drives that point home. From possible bribery and ethical conflicts to politically motivated prosecutions and the firing of career prosecutors, he lays out a pattern, one that points to a Justice Department prioritizing political loyalty over professional ethics. It's not just about one bribe, one official, or one administration. It's about whether the rule of law is still the bedrock of the American system or just a rhetorical prop used when convenient. And look at how Bondi ends her exchange. Not with facts, not with transparency, but with whataboutism. She pivots to Hunter Biden, to accusations against Democrats, to anything that can shift focus away from the core issue, the weaponization of justice. That's not a defense, it's a tactic, because when the truth is uncomfortable, distraction becomes the most powerful shield. There's also a psychological layer here. Schiff represents the institutionalist, someone who believes the system can correct itself if truth is pursued relentlessly. Bondi, in contrast, embodies the loyalist, someone who protects the tribe at all costs, even if it means undermining the institution she leads. That tension between loyalty to the law and loyalty to the leader is one of the oldest struggles in any democracy. And every time the latter wins, institutions erode a little more. The audience watching this hearing isn't just seeing political drama. They're witnessing what happens when truth becomes optional in government service, when power starts rewriting the rules instead of abiding by them. And Schiff, for all his frustration, is trying to reassert something simple but fundamental, that facts still matter, that oversight is still necessary, and that silence, when you hold public office, is never neutral. Pam Bondi's refusal to engage on the specifics of corruption allegations doesn't just protect individuals, it corrodes public faith. Because when Americans see leaders dodge accountability under oath, they stop believing in the impartiality of justice. And once that belief collapses, restoring it becomes one of the hardest tasks in a democracy. This hearing, chaotic as it was, offered a rare window into that erosion in real time. Schiff's insistence, his persistence in demanding clear answers, wasn't about scoring political points. It was about forcing a reckoning. Either the Department of Justice serves the people, or it serves power. And Bondi's performance made that question uncomfortably clear. So what do we take away from this? That every time a public official dodges accountability, the public itself loses a little more control over the government meant to represent it. That corruption doesn't always announce itself with headlines or handcuffs. Sometimes it's quiet, procedural, dressed in bureaucratic language and polite deflection. And that's what makes it so dangerous. It's moments like this that remind us that democracy doesn't collapse in one dramatic moment. It decays slowly, in hearings like these, where answers are replaced with excuses and oversight turns into performance. If you value this kind of breakdown, the kind that looks beyond the noise to unpack the meaning behind the moment, make sure you're subscribed to Left Lens. Hit the like button so the algorithm knows independent analysis still matters. And share this video with someone who thinks accountability in government is just political theater, because as this hearing shows, it's much more than that. It's the foundation of trust in democracy itself.